What is it like on set right now in the middle of the pandemic? Does it feel safe? Does it feel risky? Are people wearing masks? Are they getting tested? We're going to talk about all of that in this video. What's up, my fellow actors? Welcome to the Acting Career Center, here to help you learn the skills you need to break into the film and television industry. My name is Kurt Yu. Thank you so much for spending some time here with me today. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit that subscribe button to get more videos on acting, auditioning, and career advice every single week. Now, it is Thanksgiving week here in the United States, so if you celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great day, great week, and a safe week. If you live in some other part of the world, then I hope you had a great week as well. And since it is Thanksgiving week, and today being Friday, the day that I'm uploading this video is going to be Friday. It is Black Friday, which is the biggest shopping day of the year, where most stores across the country have their biggest sales of the year. So in honor of that, I'm offering a huge discount on my YouTube videos. Yeah, today only, all of my YouTube videos are going to be 30% off. That's 30% more free than they normally are. So watch as many of my videos today as possible. 30% off. 30% more free. Yeah. So in this video, we're talking all about what it's like on set right now during the pandemic. It's kind of a follow-up video to one that I did about a month ago about what it's like auditioning during the pandemic. So today, it's all about what COVID testing is like. Do the sets feel safe or risky and all of that. In the past couple months, I've gotten a chance to work on 2 independent films, 2 commercials, a television show, and I'll be working on another feature film next week that's going to be out of town. So I've got, I think, a good amount of experience just in the past couple months to share what I've learned and what the sets are like. So I've put together a list of kind of my observations of what it's been like on set. They're not in any real particular order, but I do think I want to start with before we even step foot on set. So after we get that email or the call that you booked the job and we get really excited, what happens after that? Well, one thing that's changed is now we're getting contacted by a COVID coordinator to get testing done. So every production has been a little bit different. Some have required 1 test and some have required multiple tests. So most recently I worked on a television show where they required me to get 2 COVID tests back to back. So let's say on a Wednesday I got a test, and then a Thursday I got another test, and then quarantine for 2 days before working on the actual show. So that is a huge difference between what's happening right now compared to what it was like before the pandemic. Because before then, you book the job. You can work immediately. If they need you to work the next day, you can work the next day. But currently, they have a strict quarantine period, and they need you to pass sometimes 1, sometimes multiple COVID-19 tests before you can step foot on set. This same television show also tests all of their cast and crew members 3 times a week. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they test their cast and crew members for COVID-19. So I think for the most part, everyone feels pretty safe on set because we all know that everyone is being consistently tested and everyone is testing negative, or else they wouldn't be allowed on set right now. I think in total, between all of the projects I've worked on in the past few months, I've been tested about 10 times. And then I'm going to have at least 1 or possibly 2 more tests next week before I can work on this movie that I'm going out of town for. So that is a huge difference, right? Everybody is getting tested before they can go on set and work, sometimes multiple times. Another thing that's happening is that for most productions, you will have a fitting before you work. And a wardrobe fitting is where they fit you for the clothes that you're going to be wearing on set, that your character is going to be wearing. And prior to the pandemic, a lot of times the fittings are in person. So you would schedule a fitting date before your actual work date, and they will have the clothes that they've picked out for you, and you try them on. A lot of times you're trying on multiple options, and they're taking pictures and sending them to the director for them to, pick which ones they want you to wear. And then they'll also tailor the clothes so that you look good on set. But right now, it seems like, at least on the commercials that I worked on, the fittings have been virtual. So instead of actually going somewhere for a fitting, they would actually have the stylist do a Zoom call, and then we would do the fitting virtually, and we're trying on our own clothes. So we're showing them the clothes that I actually have, and then they'll tell me, hey, bring these to set, and then we will probably be using one of those. This is different from a lot of sets prior to the pandemic, because most of the time when you're on set, they're providing the clothes that your character will be wearing. For the commercials that I've worked on, the two commercials I worked on during the pandemic, I wore my own clothes. On the television show, they did still do a real fitting, a live fitting. So it hasn't been every single time, but that has been a change. Sometimes there have been virtual fittings, and they've asked me to bring my own clothes rather than production providing them. One other thing that kind of caught me off guard a little bit is that I mentioned that I'm going to be traveling out of town to work on a movie next week. Well, production actually strongly encouraged me to drive rather than to fly. Typically, if I'm going to be working on something out of town that's more than like a 6 or 7 hour drive away, I prefer to fly because I just don't want to spend all that time on the road and in my car. But production told me that due to COVID-19 and because cases are going up here in the United States, they would feel much better if I drove. Even though it's a long drive, they'd feel much safer because I'm really just going to be in the car with myself rather than being in a busy airport and spending time on the plane with a bunch of strangers. So they said, we'd rather you drive, we'll reimburse you for your mileage and all of that. So I'm going to be driving next week. It's going to be more than a 10-hour drive. Whereas had this not been in the middle of a pandemic, it would be like a 2-hour flight. So that is something that I have to do that's not ideal, but it's got to be done. Okay, so those were all the differences before we actually step on set. What happens when you actually arrive? Well, I can say for sure every single set that I've worked on in the past couple months, when I arrive on set, the first thing that they did was they did a temperature check. So they have that little mini shotgun thing where they check the temperature on your forehead. That has happened every single time without fail. And then the other thing is every single person has a mask on. I can't walk on to the set without a mask on. The crew members for sure, 100% of the time had a mask on. Oftentimes people would have a mask and a face shield on for double protection. Cast members is a bit different, right? Because cast members will have to take off a mask at some point before the cameras start rolling. So I've seen different ways of handling things. There was a couple sets where I've always had the mask on whenever I'm not on camera, but there have been other sets where they have told the actors to only wear their mask up until they go through hair and makeup. And then after they go through hair and makeup, it's okay for the actors to not wear their mask anymore, because once they do, they kind of mess up the makeup and they have to reapply it again. And that kind of, defeats the purpose of the whole thing, because then you have to be in contact with a makeup artist a second time or a third time or a fourth time every time you put the mask on. So sometimes on set you will see actors walking around without a mask, and that's only because they've gone through hair and makeup and they don't want to have to reapply that again. Another thing that I've noticed on set is that some sets have become paperless because they want to limit interactions between people and passing things back and forth. So before the pandemic, a lot of times you would get a paper contract in your trailer to fill out. You would get the sides for the day that's on paper. Whereas now, sometimes the contract has been sent beforehand, filled out all on the computer beforehand, and they don't give sides out. They'll email the sides, so I'll have the sides on my phone for the day, but they won't give paper copies of the sides anymore because they don't want to have people handing things back and forth to each other, again, to limit that exposure. I also noticed clear plastic dividers being used in a lot of locations, especially in the hair and makeup trailer. A lot of times you go into the hair and makeup trailer, you just see all the different chairs for the actors to sit in, but now each chair is separated by one of those clear dividers. And I also saw those clear dividers on set where the actors were being held. So when you see the cast chairs in the actors holding area, a lot of times those cast chairs are just arranged one right next to each other, and actors are all just kind of sitting and hanging out in the same spot. On this most recent television show that I worked on, they put the cast chairs about 6 feet apart, and they had one of those plastic dividers between each chair, again, as another huge precaution. These are just like precautions on top of precautions, right? Because like I said, everybody has been tested already. Everybody is being tested multiple times a week, but they're taking all these extra measures as well to pretty much guarantee that the virus is not spreading on set. Also, I noticed that there's hand sanitizer everywhere. Everywhere that you look, there's going to be a little bit of hand sanitizer. You can't walk like 30 feet on set without seeing some hand sanitizer available. The one commercial that I worked on, there was even a person, I think it was that person's job, just to walk around with this big old bottle of hand sanitizer and just walk around to people asking them, do you need hand sanitizer? Do you need sanitizer? And so that was definitely something new, and you wouldn't see that on a set without a pandemic. Craft services has definitely changed. Kind of breaks my heart a little bit. If you don't know what craft services is, oftentimes abbreviated as crafty, it's where all the great food is on set. It's often just like a little cart or a table of all kinds of snacks, fruit snacks, potato chips, granola bars, fruits and vegetables, basically anything that you can think of, gummy bears, almonds, all kinds of stuff, right? And prior to the pandemic, it would just be pretty much a free-for-all. Anybody can come by and just browse through what's available and just grab whatever they want to take. Obviously now they want to limit exposure, so there's fewer options available for one, and also everything is kind of just separated into their own individual little pre-packed, almost like Lunchables kind of pre-packed things. And instead of you being able to just browse around and select and take what you want, there's someone standing there asking you what you want, and then they take it and give it to you. So it's not, you don't have a bunch of hands reaching in and touching everything and looking at everything. You just kind of point to what you want and they hand it over to you. So it's just that one point of contact, right? And then lunch is also very different. Again, something that kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I always looked forward to lunch whenever I went on set, because catering is usually very good on a film and television set. And prior to the pandemic, lunches was typically kind of served in a buffet style. So when production broke for lunch, everybody would go to wherever lunch is being held, whether it's a cafeteria type of place or something like that. But you would just kind of get in line, grab your tray, grab your plates, and then go through this buffet of all kinds of different food options available. Now lunch is more of taking orders. So now you go through a little menu that they either send to you, or one of the ADs will come over, or one of the PAs will come over, and they'll have an iPad and they'll show you on the screen of what's available for lunch. You tell them your order and they bring you your lunch. And oftentimes people are now eating lunch in their trailers by themselves, rather than in a big like dining hall type of area where there's a lot of people, congregating at the same place. I will say though, the one positive thing from that, at least for me personally, is that when it was the buffet style, I oftentimes would kind of eat too much during lunch because it was so good, and then after lunch I would be so stuffed and I'd want to take a nap. Whereas when I'm just ordering off of a little menu and I'm just ordering a small amount, I don't overstuff myself and I don't end up going into that food coma afterwards. So that's probably a good thing for me, just kind of health-wise. But I do miss it, and I do hope one day we still go back to that. One other thing that I know a lot of people were worried about when everything first kind of shut down was that when things come back, were they going to start cutting out all of the smaller roles? I know people were worried that they were going to cut, co-star roles on TV shows, day player roles in movies, like all of those are going to be gone. That was a big fear. And also extras, right? Background actors. Oh, those are all going to be gone because they want to limit the amount of people on set. I know that was a worry of mine as well, and definitely a lot of people, but I haven't seen that happen. In the sets that I've worked on, there have been extras, there have been co-stars and day players. The roles that I've booked have not been these huge roles. They're still the similar types of roles that I was auditioning for and booking prior to the pandemic. So if you were afraid of that happening, don't worry too much about it. I know in the television show I just worked on, we had an office scene and there were definitely background actors walking around in the hallway. So those types of jobs are still available. The one thing that I will say is that they probably did try to limit the amount of scenes where there are crowds. That is something that I do think they made a conscious effort to get rid of. I definitely haven't auditioned for anything where there has been a crowd. I haven't worked on a set where there has been a crowd. So that doesn't mean that there hasn't been one, but I do think that they probably made a conscious effort to minimize those because those are the most risky, right? If you have a group of people together. Okay, so those were my observations of what it's been like on set during the pandemic. I'm sure I didn't cover everything. There are definitely differences that I probably missed or just never saw. So if you have been on set during the pandemic and you have any observations you want to share, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear that. All right, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and I hope to see you on set one day.